Dear Earthmates, we are visiting New Zealand. We are visiting Dr. Nelson Wattie. He is a poet, academic, anthologist. You prepared the anthology of New Zealand literature, right?
Yes, I have. Well, really an account, a long history of New Zealand literature.
Yes.
Like set up like a dictionary. I could show you. I could show you.
Oh, yes, please. And Nelson Wattie and I met thanks to Pen International. And there we see the cover. It's the other way around. This is yes.
Right.
Wonderful. And Nelson Wattie is one of the co-signatories of our Earth Civilization Project Declaration in 2013. And he's also an opera singer.
I was.
Well, still, once an opera singer, always an opera singer.
Yes.
And also the president of New Zealand, PEN. We've also been together in Istanbul.
I'm not strictly, no, I'm not president, but I represent PEN to the outside world. Yes.
Very good.
I'm not the president.
In action.
Yes.
In action, yes.
Yes.
So, how did your love in literature begin?
Oh, goodness, it began very early, of course, as most people. When I was a child, I picked up books. I was taught to read when I was a very small child, when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I loved books from the beginning. My parents were supportive in that, and I have always been a big reader of books. I still read them constantly. Yes.
Yes. And how about writing?
I suppose that started when I was maybe 15 years old. I tried my hand at writing poetry and tried to write stories. Well, I did write stories and poems. I shouldn't say just try. And
yes,
I've continued with that throughout my life too. It is a lifelong thing. It's very hard to say where these things begin. They just grow in you as you go through life.
True. And you're also a translator?
I am, yes. I lived in Germany for, well, Germany and Austria together. I lived for about 25 years. And I was married to a German-speaking person, so I really grew very fluent in German. It's almost my second, well, it is my second language. It's almost like my first language. I still correspond with friends in German, and I still translate as well. A lot of the work is purely for money, I suppose, professional translation, but I also translate literary works, and I have specialized in art essays, essays about art for catalogues of museums, and for a journal. There's an art journal published in Vienna, which publishes in 2 languages, and I translate the whole journal every 3 months. So yes, I've had a lot of work and activity as a translator. I also taught translation in Cologne at a University of Applied Sciences, as it's called, um, for some years, well, 10 or 12 years. Uh, so I've had a lot of experience in the field of translation. Oh, I've lost your sound.
Sorry, how about opera? Singing?
Ah, well, when I was at school, we sang as children do in the classroom, and my voice was always coming through the other voices. So the music teacher said I should get some training, and I did. I started at the, maybe I really started seriously at the age of about 18, when I started university.
I think that's the right age for opera singing, right? About
Yes, it's a good time to start. I have a bass baritone voice which doesn't develop until you're in your 30s, I think.
wow.
But yes.
In Tokyo, you sang beautifully at the,
Ah,
Congress.
thank you.
Yes, yes. And being in New Zealand,
Yes.
what is it like? I'm sure a lot of people must have asked you. I mean, it's relatively isolated, but
Very isolated.
you, you are you have always been in the whole world mentally, of
Yes.
course. But what do you think?
Well, personally, I even as a small child, when I say I read a lot, I read about other countries very often and got very interested in the world, the whole world, really. And I have to confess, though, that in the place where I grew up, it was a small town called Napier. There was a lot of racism and xenophobia and things like that. And I was angry with that. I didn't like it. So I set up opposition to that. Even in my own family, I was a bit of a rebel. And I believed that human beings, I still believe that human beings are human and first, and then belong to a nation second. And we share so much, even if we come from very different places. As you and I do, we are good friends, but we come from very different countries. And that to me is a very important message to all people. There is still so much irrational dislike of people who are not the same as yourself.
You're right. You're right. And that's why translation is an important area.
Exactly, yes.
I consider translators messengers of world peace, actually.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you know,
I like to think that too, yes.
unfortunately, their rights are not are usually disregarded
Yes.
tremendously, unfortunately.
It is difficult to make a living, for example, as a translator,
Yeah, well, I
unless
should
you
say
do.
our rights because I'm a little bit of a translator as well.
Yes.
And how about you? You have also been an active a pen member.
Yes.
Uh, how did that begin? With
Ah, um, that's again, it's hard to really say. It just happens that you meet people, you get introduced to ideas and so on. And because of my interest in the world of literature, and I mean world literature really, I thought, yes, this is an organization that I should belong to. Unfortunately, in New Zealand, it is a part of the Society of Authors, which really has different aims from PEN. It is like a trade union for writers. They deal with publishers and other organizations that writers deal with. And the work of PEN in promoting liberty, in promoting freedom of expression, freedom of the word, that work tends to be secondary in New Zealand. The main part of the organization is not focused on that. So in some degree, I feel that I am or was a bit alone with it, and I just went ahead and did what I could do.
But you are a poet, and by nature,
Yes.
a poet is usually alone in a way, you know.
True. Yes. Yes.
And a rebel, of course. I mean,
Yes.
poetry is rebellion.
Yes, so it is in part at least, yes. And I'm sort of proud of my independent thinking, I think, as an individual. So belonging to an organization is not quite natural for me, but I think the PEN organization is such an important one and does such good work that I want to be a part of that. But yes, poets and writers generally, I think, are very individual.
Yes, that's true. That's so true. And a nice combination of anarchy and organization, fruitful organization.
Yes, that sounds good.
That's maybe.
I agree. Yes, that sounds very good. There is a contrast, you see, between my belief in in humanity as a totality, and my belief in the individual. But I think both things are equally true. We are individuals, but we also share many of our qualities with people everywhere in the world.
You're right. And when I was young in Turkey, there was, maybe in many countries, there was this fierce discussion whether the individual was important or the society, whether art was for art's sake or society's sake, etc. But these are unnecessary questions. I mean, without
Yes.
society, how can we have individuals, and vice versa?
Exactly.
Also, art, society, etc., etc. These are not exclusive poles.
No. I am very grateful to live in a country where we do have a sense of community, even across the whole country. Our Prime Minister talks about a team of 5 million. That is, the population of New Zealand is all one team. It's not always true. There is a lot of conflict and discussion and disagreement, and that's where the individual side of the personality comes in. But there is also this sense that we belong together and we need to support and help each other. So those two things, as you say, they're not really in conflict. They're two faces of one thing.
I love the concept of team. For me, a good family is a good team, for example.
Yes.
Any group of people should hopefully be a team. And how about indigenous Earthmates?
We work constantly with when I say we, I mean the team works constantly on trying to make our multicultural society into a harmonious one so that people can still belong to their culture, but are still also a part of our general society. And the Maori people are the indigenous people of New Zealand, and they do have a special status. I won't say that we have no problems. There are quite severe problems. If you look at the statistics, you will see that the level of income, for example, is much lower in the Maori community on average than in the what we call Pākehā. That is, we use a Maori word to describe ourselves, the people who came from Europe. We also have quite big communities of Asian people, Chinese, Indian, and from other Asian countries. We don't have so many African people, but we do have small communities of African people in New Zealand as well. We are a very mixed society, especially now, more so than when I was a child. But at the same time, we like to think, and we can, in fact, be kind and friendly to each other, as well as giving space for special cultural interests.
Mm-hmm. My grandchildren have come from school, so in the background, now and then you might hear them a little bit, although I asked them to be a little quiet. I'll mute my microphone.
I'd like to see them.
How about Maori literature?
Well,
in English or partly, or
yes, that's a very interesting question, because when I was younger, when I was at school and university, there were very few writers with a Maori background in any language. And then during the 1960s, the number increased quite quickly, the number of writers with a Maori background. At the same time, there was still a lot of what we call Pākehā writers who were writing about Maori. Later, say in the later 1960s and early 1970s, there was some tension, and the Maori writers said, "You don't have a right to talk about us, you Pākehā." There was tension and disagreement about that, but things have settled down again now, and I think we have voices, Maori voices, English background voices, and also Chinese writers, Indian writers who are New Zealanders. So we have a mixed one. They use English. Most writers in New Zealand use English, but there is also a growth of interest in the Maori language and in the publication of writing in the Maori language that has grown and grown. And to be honest, even in the last few years, the language has become, you could almost say, popular. It wasn't in the past, but it is, I think, now. Many people are learning Maori. They go to night schools, they learn online, they learn with audio or visual materials. Many people are trying to learn the language. Also, the Maori language is coming into our media. When I listen to the radio, I hear Maori words being used inside English sentences, and also complete sentences of Maori thrown into the media, which are normally in English. There are, of course, specialized radio and also TV channels that use the Maori language. So it has become, I should perhaps explain the historical background to that, because when I was at school, Maori was considered to be of no importance and no interest. In general, there were always exceptions to that. But and even earlier, people were punished at school. Maori children were punished at school if they spoke Maori.
There is a background sound somewhere. Is it? Okay, now it's good.
All
Good,
right.
good.
Sorry, maybe I'm moving too much. Um, I can't hear you again. So yes, the development of interest
About
in
your school days, yes.
yes, has been very valuable. And it's very encouraging for someone like me who is interested in languages. It's very welcome that so much interest is now focused on the Maori language. Hello? I can't hear you now. What is that?
Yes.
That was your grandson.
My grandson, yes.
Nice to see you.
Something similar. I mean, in many countries, unfortunately, the multiplicity, plurality of languages seem to have been a burden on the governments,
Yes.
with a leading to anti-democratic measures. In Turkey, many people know that Kurdish was forbidden for a while, and what, ideally in a country, all the languages at in the first grade of the elementary school, at least hello in all the languages in that country,
Yes.
be given to, in Armenian, in Turkey, for example, in Armenian, in Greek, in Kurdish, in other languages.
Yes.
Students in high school, in the elementary school, should learn to say hello, how are you, I'm fine, in those languages.
Yes.
That's why psychologically that would mean a lot. What do you think about that?
Oh, well, I think any introduction of other languages is good. It's a reminder to people that the people that seem strange to them or foreign to them, as I've said before, are simply people. And we share so much. And if we can't speak their language, if we can say a few words, I think that's very encouraging. And does build bridges. Even a few words can build bridges between the people. I'm familiar too with the situation in Austria, where people in the south of Austria many people in the south of Austria speak Slovakian. There is a Slovakian population in the south of Austria, and that has been a source of trouble. It's been a source of trouble for many, many years. I think now it is quiet and people are more accepting, as they are in New Zealand, more accepting of other languages and other cultures. But for many years, decades, there was violence even, and sometimes actions where people would replace signposts in one language with a signpost in the other language, that sort of thing. All of that seems to me to be coming, perhaps that's an effect of the media, of television, and especially things like what we are using now, where people can communicate across great distances. I get the impression that it's much the problem of racism and language nationalism and so on, that is diminishing in the world. It's not gone yet, but it is improving, I think, and that's good.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's good to have dictionaries, of course, they are vital. It's also good to have lists of similar words or common words between languages. For example, I would love to learn what words we use common in Greek and in Turkish, in Kurdish and in Turkish, in Armenian
Yes,
and in
that's
Turkish,
right.
etc.
Yeah.
And Earthmate, I don't recall his name, a Russian. He prepared a 10,000 word list of English words or words which are common in English and in Russian. 10,000.
Oh,
Wow. So it's
that,
very encouraging that,
yes, it
why
is
not
very
learn?
encouraging. Yes. You
Yes.
remind me of a book that I've just read. I finished it a week or two ago by Elif Shafak. Is that name familiar?
Elif Shafak, yes.
Shafak. And she wrote a book, her most recent book is about Cyprus and the tension between Turkish and Greek people in Cyprus. And it's about a family of mixed Turkish and Greek, um, uh, well, culture. And the similarities between them are much bigger than either side is willing to admit, I think.
That's
So it's very interesting what you told me, that you're interested in making a list perhaps of words that are common to both Turkish and Greek.
and this could be in other countries, in other languages too,
Absolutely.
Not only differences, but also similarities. And
Yes, look for some similarities that helps to bridge that gap. That it's because people feel that these other people are somehow strange. They're different to me, and I feel uncomfortable. But if you do things like that, I think you focus on the similarities and you realize they're not as strange as you think they are.
true, true. And
And PEN is a wonderful organization for putting all of that into practice, I think.
true, true. And
International meetings where you and I have met, where there are people from all over the world, all uh, with similar aims and similar ideals, and of course disagreements. We are human beings. That's a part of being the general human being, that we can disagree with each other as well. But PEN is a great organization from that point of view.
yes, and we are celebrating our 100th anniversary.
Yes,
And
it's
very
very,
important. Yes,
it has a
and
fine history.
things are usually easier said than done, as people who put effort in pen and other fields of activities. Dear Nelson Wattie, dear Earthmate, what would you like to suggest to youngsters and to other Earthmates in life?
Goodness, that's a big question, a very big question. Sadly, I think we have not only good and fine qualities in common, we are facing some big difficulties, and especially climate change to me seems to be the biggest of all. Here in New Zealand, the radio is constantly full of talk about COVID, the coronavirus, which is natural because it's very immediate to people. But it seems to me that the climate change is an even bigger universal issue. And if we can, this of course applies to more than writers, it applies to everybody, that if we can unify our efforts to mitigate climate change, that is the most important job we have on our hands, I think.
That's true. And one of our Earthmates from Nepal, Yuba Nath Lamsal, in his presentation as one of the episodes of this Earth civilization dialogues, he focused on the Himalayas and how 2 or 3 billion people's lives are in danger. I mean, they are affected because of the climate change, and they will have to move away from the Himalayas because the ice is. That's the Amazons in South America is one issue, and the Himalayas.
Yes.
And it's important to express. Yes.
Solidarity with those people.
Pardon?
We should express solidarity at least with those people. And
yes.
Of course, it also applies to the people of the Pacific Ocean, our neighbors in New Zealand. There are many island communities which live on atolls, which are only a few meters above, the highest point is a few meters above the ocean, and the ocean is rising, and some of those people will probably also have to move away. And where do they move to, and how can they move? We must try to welcome immigrants of that kind who are escaping from climatic issues. Yeah, those are the international things that I think, and PEN contributes to that simply by drawing, making people aware of it. I think writers make people aware of such issues.
True. The difference between luxury and vital needs partly is making a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, good literature a little bit irritates or
yes,
a little bit.
Yes, that's true. I can't hear.
Sorry, that element of fruitful disturbance
Yes.
is important.
Yes, it is.
What we would like to add now, we are not going to put a period or a full stop. This is a comma, and
yes,
we are together, and the Earth Civilization Network is
it's a wonderful concept.
Growing. And
yes.
Is there anything else you would like to mention now?
No, thank you. I think you have covered a lot, and I think this Earth civilization concept is very moving, and it's a profound idea. And, yes, I'm with you.
People have been talking about planetary civilization, but we want to use the planet's name, saying the Earth.
Yes, that is good. I've seen designs of a flag for the Earth.
Yes,
which,
our Canadian Earthmate, Bruce, he has years ago he made that.
It's a brilliant idea.
Yes, thank you so much, and we are together. Dear Earthmates, we are thanking Nelson Wattie for hosting us, and we are together.